All right. Peace and greetings, YouTubers. I tell you, man, when wealth and mediocrity get together, the doors just open. You know what I mean? The doors of opportunity just fly open and the opportunity just floods out. Red carpet roll out. First class flight. Would you like a drink? Can we take your coat? Would you like some hors d'oeuvres? Can you turn left for the paparazzi? Who are you wearing tonight? Like, hot mess, man. I don't know if you've seen this story, but long story short, there is this big, giant college admissions scam that has hit the news media. And so, long story short, you have a bunch of very wealthy people. This includes actors, producers, public figures, and some folks we ain't never heard of. And long story short, they have paid and cheated and bribed and done some trickery to make sure that their children get into the colleges of their choice. And not only get into these universities, but also end up in sports programs and merit programs and get different scholarships and opportunities and become a part of programs that are very competitive that the average person has to fight and claw to get in. But you know, with these folks, they just wrote a check in, flew right on in, first class, Virgin Airlines, because you know they make the nicest planes. Hot freaking mess, man. So I had to write down the details because there's so many details that are coming out and the story is still developing. So to be honest, this video may be dated by the time you watch it. There's no telling who else is named in the mix. But so far, you've heard about a few celebrities that have been charged. I mean, the FBI's in this. They've raided people's houses. You know, they done kicked the door in and the nice little $600,000 poodle done ran in front of the door. They done kicked the dog to the side and just, you know, they come in there just arresting everybody. But anyway. Here's some of the details. So Felicity Hoffman was one of the people listed. She paid $15,000 to somebody for a favor. Now the main person who is, I guess, the ringleader of this little scheme is this guy named Andrew William Rixinger. And so he's the main person. And listen, he's been paid upwards of like $25 million to do these favors for a bunch of different people. So like I said, Felicity Hoffman was one of the people. The woman who played Becky from Full House was in the mix. And the funniest bit with her, she paid $500,000 to ensure that her two daughters would get into USC. And not only get into USC, but also end up on the soccer team. Now, here's the funny part. They didn't even play soccer in high school. And so, you know, they put together this whole little packet and said that the daughters were co-captains on the soccer team at their high school and everything like that. And I'm just like, well, how does that work when y'all get to practice? And the two daughters are at practice, and they're practicing and training and conditioning with all these other soccer players and athletes who have done soccer their whole lives, who have muscle memory, who have stamina, who have the perseverance to run for hours at a time. Nobody thought anything was off when these girls probably did 2 laps and then they were passed out and ready to quit and throw up, and, you know, they got to get a doctor's note because, you know, they can't do too much running. They can only run for 30 minutes and then they got to sit down. Like, nobody thought that maybe some of that was a little suspect. Anyway, that's why I didn't watch Full House to begin with. I'm going to be honest. I watched Step by Step because they had a better theme song. You know, step by step, day by day. Like, they had a good little theme song. Full House was cool. I don't remember that show like that, though. But anyway, so she paid the $500K for that, which is crazy. Some more details, because this also included people paying folks to take standardized tests for them, like the ACT or the SAT. So this included 2 exam administrators, 1 exam proctor, 1 college administrator, 9 sports coaches, 33 parents so far have been listed in this whole scam, and there's a possibility that there could be anywhere between 700 and 800 additional people tied into this scam as far as people paying folks out. Like, that's crazy. Then some more details. And this one kind of got me. I was like, what the heck? So you had some parents paying anywhere between $200,000 and $6.5 million for guaranteed admission into these universities for some of their children. Now, that makes no sense to me. Call me crazy, but listen, I've seen more than enough education connection infomercials at 2 a.m. on a Saturday to know that you can get connected for free. Now, listen, I don't think that was going to get you connected to USC, but goodness, clearly $6.5 million to get into a school that may have cost maybe $60,000 a year. Clearly, it's not even about the education. That's just status and pedigree. You don't even care about what your kids are actually getting as far as education. You just want to say, my child went to this school, my child went to that school. That's like paying $8,000 to ride in the front of the city bus. Like, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? This one got me too. You had one parent, they lied and said that their child was a track star in high school, and they did the pole vault. So they did all these Photoshop pictures and Photoshopped their child on a little stick in the air and all that stuff like that to get this scholarship to be on the track team for USC. And I'm like, that's absolutely crazy. And I guess they did their research because they figured you can't fake being fast. You know, they can't say that the son was a sprinter because if that was the case, when he got to USC, he was going to have to compete against all of the Caribbean students and the black students and all the students from West and East Africa that can run super, super fast and super quick and run for long distances. And they were like, we can't fake that. So, you know what? We know black folks be scared of heights, so do the pole vault. We ain't got to worry about them showing up to that one. Hot mess. A few more details. You had one parent pay $50,000 for someone to take the ACT test for them, and then that person got their child a 35 out of 36, almost a perfect score. And then to make it even worse, the child didn't even know that somebody took the test for them because the mom still made that child take a dummy test. And so they took the test and they're over here walking around campus thinking they're the smartest one on campus. And they probably done got a 9.5 on the ACT, walking around thinking they got a 35. Crazy. Some of the schools that are involved in this, and all the schools are saying that they had no idea about this. Yale, USC, Stanford, University of San Diego, Georgetown, University of Texas, at Austin, UCLA, and Wake Forest. And the thing that really gets me about all of this is that, somewhere there's some student that didn't get into one of these schools because one of these rich kids were able to slide into their spot. There's some kid that didn't get that scholarship they needed to even attend the school for some sports program because one of these unathletic students then took their spot. When you're talking about education in this country, you know that in the K through 12 world, the quality of education that you're going to get is all dependent upon the zip code in which you live in. It's all dependent upon the revenue that's generated from the property taxes in the area that you live in that would fund the school system. And you have a lot of children who are in areas that don't bring in that kind of revenue. They're not as affluent, and so the schools are not as good. The access to resources and opportunities are not there. And so the slap in the face is one. You have kids all across the country who don't have money to get access to tutors and special this, that, and the third, and special SAT courses and SAT classes and mathematicians to come and make sure that they can understand algebra and access to state-of-the-art sports equipment and gymnasiums and stuff so the child can do football or soccer or hockey or archery and everything else like that, and rugby and all that other stuff like that. And so you have kids who have to really bust their behinds. I mean, you have some kids where, unfortunately, as great as they are at something like track or football, they can't even do it for the full 4 years in high school because their parents don't have enough money for them to get a babysitter for the other siblings. And they have to quit their sport to take care of things at home, or they have to go get a job. And then at the same time, they still got to get good grades. They still got to do all of these different things just to be considered half as good. And I mean, they work and they bust their behinds. And they still don't get in. Or if they get into the school, there's no scholarship money or this, that, and the third. And then you got these folks over here who don't even really care about anything as far as education. It's all pedigree. It's all status. And here they go, just hopping right in, and it's smooth sailing. I just think that crap is jacked up. And a funnier bit, as another example, is one of the kids who was a beneficiary of this little scandal here, they ended up becoming a social media influencer where they made posts all about their experience in college and everything like that. And so they started getting paid money out the behind for their little Instagram posts. So imagine what it's like to be a student who, one, your parents then took out 8.5 loans and there's still not enough money for you to go to school, so you're stressed out because you don't know if you're even going to have enough money to come next semester. So you're one step away from being an Uber driver or a stripper or donating blood plasma so you can get some money, or donating a body part to science so you can get some money just to pay off your tuition. Meanwhile, the person sitting next to you in class, all they got to do is make 3 Instagram posts and they got their tuition covered, even though they didn't have to do that because mom and dad had it anyway. And so yeah, they just did all that and their livelihood is good. You're over here stressed out, can't even sleep good. And then on top of that, they got to be in your group for the group project. They don't even know how to do any work. Like, that's a problem. That's some jacked up stuff there. Hot freaking mess, man. And what's really sitting down deep in my spirit right now? If the parents spent this kind of money to cheat their way into making sure that their kids got into these schools, and not only got into schools, but got scholarships on top of that and got into sports programs, imagine the kind of money and investment they spent on their children during the K through 12 era. So, this is the special piano lessons. This is the special summer camps in Europe. This is the money to go to these really expensive college preparatory high schools and academies and private schools where the tuition is like $40,000, $50,000 a year, sometimes more than the actual colleges that they applied to go to. And you mean to tell me, with all of that investment, with all of that support, with all of the nannies going to the PTA meetings and all of the people, the paid tutors coming to the house and the this and the that and the networking opportunities and going to entrepreneurship camp and getting to go stand on the movie set with this person and shadow this movie director and all that crap, all of that support, all of that investment, all of that motivation. You mean to tell me that them kids still didn't meet the requirements to get into these schools? You mean to tell me they still would have been able to test high enough on something like the SAT? Everybody else, we got to get these unreasonably high scores in order to get into some of these schools and get funding. And you mean to tell me with all the support that those kids got, they still didn't meet the requirements to get in? The parents were still going to need to cheat to make sure that they could get in. That's some crazy stuff to me, because what does that say to the kids who don't have those resources? To the kids who end up going to the school where they spend more money on metal detectors and security than they do books. To the kids who end up in the schools that are just not really doing it when it comes to giving the children a quality education. What does it say to the kids whose parents went to jail because the parents used a different address because they wanted their kids to have an opportunity to go to a better school that just might be across the freeway? What does that say? Because we've seen so many parents have to go to jail because unfortunately they're in the wrong zip code and they use the brother's address or the ex-wife or the ex-husband or the grandma or the cousin or a friend's address, so their child has an opportunity to go to a better school where the school has more resources, where things are just a little bit better, and that child has a better opportunity. And unfortunately, that same child has to still meet the same standard and meet the same expectations that are expected of those rich kids. And if those rich kids aren't doing it, what do you think is supposed to happen to these kids? These kids have to work so hard, and I mean bust their behinds. And here you have on the other side of the spectrum some rich kids that just fly right in and get to do whatever they want, and you have people on the other end of the spectrum really busting their behinds, really just trying to make do with what they have to make things happen for themselves and make things happen for their family and just do well. And it's such a slap in the face. It's some BS. And then even when you think of the parents who go through the stress of trying to put their children in some kind of lottery because the schools in their area are so bad that they have to go and register for a lottery for their children to go into a better school. And of course, with these lottery type schools that, this is when the parents don't want the kids to go to the public school because maybe the funding's been gutted out of that district and there's really just no money, and the schools are just, unfortunately, the schools are under distress, the teachers are underpaid, there's a lot going on. The parents will try to put their children in these registrations for the lotteries for these schools that are supposed to be better. And these schools, sometimes the schools may only have 400 students and they may only have 20 slots open per year for new students to come in. And then you sign up for the lottery day and it's 900 people that then signed up for 20 slots. This is the reality for so many people. And this is a world that the people on this other side don't even understand. They wouldn't even understand what that's like. So by them going and doing these things, it doesn't even cross their mind that they're screwing over other people. They could care less. It doesn't really matter to them. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is all about status and pedigree. You're spending $6.5 million for your child to get into a school. It's about status. It's not even about whether your child is learning anything. It's not about holding your child accountable and making sure that they actually put in the work to become what it is that they need to be. This is all about paying your way through everything. Like I said, when people have money, things can happen. It's kind of like when Dick Cheney shot that man in the face and then the man apologized. I would like to apologize to the Cheney family for any stress I may have put on them. I know I just got shot in the face and I could have died, but I apologize. Money talks. It's just disappointing. And you know what? Speaking of University of Texas at Austin, because this is the same school that Abby Fisher went to. Abby Fisher was the lady who applied to University of Texas at Austin. She felt that because she was legacy, she should have got in because she had some relatives who went to the school, and so she applies, and she wasn't a super great student, but she wasn't terrible. She had like a 3.5 and 1180 SAT score. She didn't get into the school. Somebody sized her up and made her think that, okay, the reason you didn't get in was because it's those affirmative action students that are undeserving who got your spot. Because a lot of people think affirmative action means black people who can't read go to Harvard. That's the thought. When in reality, when we talk about affirmative action, the research has shown us the biggest group of beneficiaries to affirmative action are white women. So Abby, who's already a beneficiary of affirmative action, she felt deep down in her spirit, I guess she wanted to be oppressed and privileged at the same time, she was going to sue and pretty much try to take down the whole idea of racial consideration when it comes to when it comes to college admissions. And so this mess went all the way to the Supreme Court. So you have Abby, who didn't even get into the school because she didn't meet the qualifications because it was a competitive program, and because she was not in the top 10% of her high school class, that closed the window to her, and she had to go into the pool with everybody else, which she didn't think she belonged in. She didn't get into the school, so she was ready to tackle down an entire system that benefits people who come from environments that are underprivileged, who come from a history of being locked out and closed out of opportunity. And when you have a program like affirmative action to try to equal the playing field and give people a shot and a boost up and just consideration to even be at the table, she said, no, I'm taking all of that down. The hell with these millions of people. It's all about me right now. I should have been here. You shouldn't have. Listen, you did all that and thought it was black folks' fault that you didn't get into the school, when in reality, it's these rich white kids. So Abby, we'll see how this unfolds. Watch everybody get probation. Everybody's getting probation. Ain't nobody going to jail. You know what I mean? Hot mess. And it's awkward because these kids are still at these universities. So class is going to be interesting tomorrow. Anyway, we'll follow up this story. Share your 2 cents. I'm out. Subscribe.